The last time I saw my son, he watched a woman slap me across the face at his own dinner table and told me to apologize to her. The smell of roasted turkey and sage used to mean only one thing to me: home. It meant my late wife, Margaret, standing at the stove in her flour-dusted apron, humming along to the radio. It meant my son, Nathan, running underfoot trying to steal a piece of bread before dinner. It meant a house full of warmth and the kind of love that made the world feel steady. But on this particular Thanksgiving, walking up the driveway to my son's new house, that same smell coming through the open windows didn't comfort me at all. It filled me with dread. I knew I was walking into something ugly. I just didn't know who would strike first. Being a father is a strange thing. You spend your whole life building a foundation for your children, hoping they carry your values with them long after they leave your house. You hope they remember the love more than the hardship. But sometimes life renovates that foundation without asking you, and you become a stranger standing in your own child's doorway. That's exactly how I felt outside Nathan's front door that afternoon. I smoothed down my one good jacket, the same one I'd worn to Margaret's funeral. It was a little frayed at the cuffs, but it was clean and pressed. I told myself it didn't matter what I wore. Some people decide what they think of you long before you open your mouth, and no jacket changes that. The door opened before I could knock. Nathan stood there, looking older than his 33 years, tension sitting heavy in his shoulders. He smiled, but it never reached his eyes. "Dad," he said, a little too brightly, "you made it. Come on in." I stepped inside, and the smell of cooking was instantly swallowed by expensive perfume and polished marble. The house looked like a showroom. White couches, glass tables, abstract art I didn't understand. It was a world away from my little apartment with its worn recliner and stack of unread paperbacks. I stood frozen in the entryway, clutching a bottle of cheap wine, suddenly aware of how small a gift it was, compared to whatever waited in that dining room. "Let me take your coat," Nathan said, though he just stood there waiting instead of reaching for it. I fumbled with the zipper, and when he finally took it from me, I caught him glance at the patched elbow. Something crossed his face, shame maybe, before he turned to hang it in the closet. That's when a sharp voice cut through the air from the living room. "Nathan? Is that the old man?" I was starting to think he got lost on his way from that apartment complex. My stomach dropped. My daughter-in-law's mother, a tall woman with hawkish features and a diamond on every finger, sat perched on the white couch like royalty, a champagne glass in hand. She didn't stand to greet me. She just looked me over and smirked. "Good afternoon, Diane. Happy Thanksgiving," I said, forcing politeness. "Thank you for having me." "Oh, we didn't have much choice," she said, taking a slow sip. Nathan insisted. Something about family obligation. She air-quoted the words like they tasted bad. "We were perfectly happy with our own quiet dinner before he decided to drag you into it." My daughter-in-law, Vanessa, appeared from the kitchen wiping her hands on a towel. Blonde, polished, dressed like she was expecting photographers. I'd liked her once. I thought Nathan had found someone wonderful. But over the years, I'd watched the cracks spread. The way she corrected him in front of friends. The way she looked embarrassed whenever he mentioned where he came from. "Mother, please," Vanessa said. Though it wasn't really a correction, more like gently scolding someone for a joke that had landed a little too well. "I'm only being honest, darling," Diane replied. "It's a free country." I scanned the room, hoping to see one friendly face, my grandson, Toby. He had Margaret's eyes, warm and endlessly curious. But he wasn't there yet, probably still playing somewhere in the back of the house. Nathan guided me toward the living room, his hand hovering near my back like he was afraid to actually touch me. "Sit down, Dad. Dinner's almost ready." I chose the leather ottoman, far from the white couch, not wanting to risk leaving a mark on anything. Diane watched me sit, her eyes crawling over my worn shoes. "You know, Harold," she said, using my name like an insult, "Vanessa's father, God rest him, always said if you can't dress for the occasion, you shouldn't bother showing up. He understood appearances. He was a businessman." Heat rose in my face, but I kept my voice level. "I'm a retired construction foreman, Diane. We don't dress up much on job sites. Jeans and steel toe boots mostly. I thought I cleaned up fine for the holiday." "Bless your heart," she said, the words dripping with condescension. "You certainly tried." I looked at Nathan, waiting for him to say something, anything. But he was staring at his phone in the corner, pretending not to have heard, like this was routine for him. The conversation moved on to European vacations, a new car, private school tuition for Toby. I sat quietly, shrinking a little more with every sentence, feeling like a ghost invited to someone else's feast. Finally, Vanessa called us to the dining room, and I nearly sighed with relief at the excuse to move. The table was stunning. Mahogany, gleaming silverware, a centerpiece worth more than my monthly rent. And there at the far end sat Toby, 9 years old, stiff in a little suit and tie. The moment he saw me, his whole face lit up. "Grandpa!" he shouted, waving both arms. My chest loosened for the first time all day. "Hey, buddy, how's my favorite guy?" Diane immediately hushed him. "Toby, indoor voice. And sit up straight, your posture is terrible." The seating arrangement felt like a small cruelty of its own. Vanessa at the head, Nathan at the foot, Diane and Vanessa's brother, a man wearing a Rolex like it was a personality, seated closest to the middle. I was placed at the very end, as far from everyone as the table allowed. "You won't mind, will you, Harold?" Vanessa said sweetly. "We like to keep the center seats for immediate family." Immediate family. I was the father of the man who owned this house, and somehow I still didn't qualify. I nodded and said the table was lovely, swallowing the lump rising in my throat. Toby was seated beside me, which made Diane visibly flinch. "Sweetheart, come sit by Nana instead," she cooed. "No, I want to sit with Grandpa," Toby said stubbornly. "He built skyscrapers. He tells the best stories." "He poured concrete for skyscrapers," Diane corrected coldly. "There's a difference. He didn't design anything." That one stung more than I expected. I never had a degree, never called myself an architect. But I could read a blueprint like a second language. I knew how to pour a foundation that would hold 100 stories of steel and glass. I knew how to keep men alive on dangerous job sites for 30 years. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. And apparently that didn't count for much at this table. Dinner started. Turkey, ham, mashed potatoes, the works. Food I could barely taste through the tension in the room. Diane held court the entire meal, talking about her charity boards and how hard it was to find good help these days, every sentence a quiet jab aimed in my direction. "I'm honestly surprised you got a seat at the table at all, Harold," she said at one point, laughing lightly. "We usually have the help eat in the kitchen. I'm only joking, of course. That's a lovely jacket, by the way. Where did you find it?" "A thrift store," I said quietly. The table went silent. Everyone waited to see how I'd react. I kept my hands in my lap so no one would see them shake. "Mom, please," Nathan finally said. "Let's just enjoy dinner." But Diane wasn't finished. She smelled blood. "I'm only curious, Harold. What's it like being poor? Must be freeing, really. No responsibilities, no one expecting much from you. Every eye at the table turned to me. Vanessa studied her nails with a faint smirk. Her brother looked at me like something he'd scraped off his shoe. Nathan stared at his plate, slicing his turkey into smaller and smaller pieces. Refusing to meet my eyes, I kept my voice steady. I wouldn't call it freeing, Diane. It's a struggle some days. But I raised my son, put him through college, and paid off my house with that work. I'm proud of it. Oh, you own a house? She said, feigning shock. I assumed you lived out of a cardboard box. A house? How adorable! My blood boiled, but it wasn't her words that hurt most. It was watching my son sit there and let it happen in his own home. I told myself I could survive a few more hours. For Toby, I could survive anything. I turned to my grandson, desperate for something normal. So, buddy, what do you think of the turkey? He leaned in and whispered, I like pie better. Can I have pie for dinner? I laughed for the first time all day. When I was your age, I tried that once. My mother told me I'd turn into a pumpkin. His eyes went wide with delight, and for one small moment, the room felt bearable again. Then Toby started tugging at his tie, clearly miserable in it. Mom, it's too tight, he whined. Grandpa, can you fix it? You used to wear ties for work, right? Toby, stop fidgeting, Vanessa snapped. You look perfectly handsome. But it's choking me, he insisted, coughing dramatically for effect. Diane glared at me like I'd orchestrated the whole scene. Can't you control your grandson? We're trying to have a civilized meal. I can fix it, I said, standing. Just leave it, Dad, Nathan mumbled without looking up. He's fine. It's no trouble, I said, and walked around to kneel beside Toby. I loosened the knot just enough to ease the pressure on his neck. There you go, buddy. Better? Thanks, Grandpa, he beamed. As I stood to walk back to my seat, Diane cleared her throat loudly. Oh, and Harold, since you're up, why don't you clear the plates? You must be used to that kind of work. That was the moment something inside me finally snapped. I stopped walking and turned to face her directly. I won't be clearing any plates, I said, my voice low but firm. I'm a guest in this house. My son invited me. I'm going to sit back down and finish my meal. The room went dead silent. Diane's face flushed a deep, furious red. She wasn't used to being told no. She rose from her chair so fast it screeched against the floor, crossed the room in a few quick steps, and before anyone could react, she slapped me hard across the face. The sound cracked through the dining room like a gunshot. My head snapped sideways. I tasted blood. The sting was immediate and humiliating, and I sat there clutching my cheek, too stunned to speak. That's for being an ungrateful, disrespectful old man, she hissed, standing over me. This is my daughter's house, and you walked in here with your poor man's manners. You don't belong at this table. I looked up at my son, my vision blurring. Nathan, I said, barely above a whisper, are you going to let her do this? His face had gone white. His hands gripped the edge of the table so hard, his knuckles turned pale. For one heartbeat, I saw a flicker of the boy who used to run to me for everything. Then it vanished. Dad, he said finally, voice weak. Just apologize. Please. So we can all sit down and finish dinner. Something in me shattered. It wasn't the slap that broke me. It was my own son telling me to apologize to the woman who had just struck me in his home. She hit me, Nathan, I said, my voice cracking. She slapped me across the face. I know, he said, staring at the floor. But you provoked her. Just say sorry and we can move past it. I looked around the table. Vanessa stared at her napkin, indifferent. Her brother smirked, clearly enjoying the show. Diane stood with her arms crossed, triumphant. Well? She snapped. Apologize or I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. I opened my mouth, searching for some way to salvage what was left of the evening. Some way to explain I only wanted to spend Thanksgiving with my grandson. But before I could get the words out, a small, clear voice cut through the tension like a blade. Mom. It was Toby. He had slipped out of his chair and was standing near me, phone clutched in both hands, his face lit by the screen. Toby, honey, go back to your seat, Vanessa said. This is grown-up business. But Mom, he said, voice rising, something happened. We'll talk about it later. No, he shouted, and the room fell completely silent. His hands were shaking. I recorded it. I went live on Facebook. The color drained from every face at that table. Diane's smug expression collapsed into something close to panic. What are you talking about? Vanessa demanded, lunging toward him. Turn that off right now. But Toby stepped back, holding the phone up toward the camera instead. Nana, he said, his voice trembling but clear. You're live. Everyone can see you right now. Diane made a grab for the phone. Give me that, you little brat, she shrieked. Toby darted behind my legs, and she froze, realizing exactly what she'd just done. On camera, in front of God knows how many people. The video had ended by the time anyone thought to check. But the damage was already done. Toby had captured all of it. His grandmother striking me, mocking me, calling me poor. His mother doing nothing to stop it. His father telling his own father to apologize for being assaulted. Nobody moved. The wall clock ticked in the silence, marking the seconds of their unraveling. Toby, Vanessa finally said, her voice shaking. Who did you send that to? Toby looked at me, then back at his mother, and asked the only question that mattered. Isn't it wrong to hit people? His voice cracked as he said it. Nana hit Grandpa. I saw it. Nobody did anything. He was right. Every adult in that room had failed the simplest test of decency there is, and a 9-year-old boy had just proven it in front of all of them. Nathan finally looked up, and the mask of pathetic compliance was gone, replaced by dawning horror. Oh my God, Dad, he whispered, tears filling his eyes. I'm so sorry. Vanessa looked ready to be sick. Diane stood frozen, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. I didn't care about any of their panic. I knelt beside my grandson and put a hand on his shoulder. Can I see the phone, buddy? He handed it over, his small fingers cold. Scrolling through, I saw the broadcast's viewer list. Vanessa's boss, neighbors, friends from the country club, dozens of familiar names. It had already been shared to other platforms, viewed well over 1,000 times. 1,000 strangers had just watched a grown woman strike an old man at a family dinner and watched my own son fail to defend me. Nathan was crying now, real tears streaming down his face. Dad, please, we can fix this. We can take it down, say it was a misunderstanding. Please don't let this ruin everything. I stood up slowly, feeling an unexpected calm settle over me. I understood, in that moment, that this video wasn't going to ruin anyone who didn't deserve it. It was going to reveal exactly who they already were. This wasn't revenge I'd planned. It was a gift, handed to me by the most honest person in the room, I turned to Diane, who was trembling now, her bravado completely gone. "You said poor people belong outside," I told her. "You were right. I never belonged in this house. But watching your reputation fall apart from a distance is going to be the best view I've had all year." I handed the phone back to Toby. "This is the best Thanksgiving gift anyone's ever given me, buddy. You've got a good heart. You're the only person at this table who ever deserved a seat." I turned to leave. Nathan grabbed my arm. "Dad, please don't go. We can talk about this." "You let her hit me," I said, pulling free. "You told me to apologize to her. You chose comfort over your own father tonight, and there's no fixing that with an apology now." I walked out through the sterile living room, past the white couch and the abstract art, and put my worn jacket back on at the door. An hour earlier, I'd been ashamed of it. Now it felt like something closer to armor. As I walked down the driveway, I could hear shouting and panic erupting behind me. The perfect Thanksgiving dinner had collapsed in on itself. Within days, the video spread everywhere. Local news picked it up, then national outlets. A wealthy woman slapping her son-in-law's elderly father was exactly the kind of story people couldn't scroll past. Diane was forced to step down from her charity boards. Vanessa lost her job once her employer saw exactly what kind of person she defended. The public had already decided whose side they were on, and it wasn't theirs. Nathan called me dozens of times, begging me to say publicly that it was all a misunderstanding. He wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry he'd been caught. I never answered those calls. I knew if I did, all the pain would come rushing back, and I wasn't ready to let it. Months later, a letter arrived from Toby. Inside was a crayon drawing of the two of us on a park bench eating ice cream. He wrote that he missed me, that he was grounded from his phone for a year, and that he'd do it again without hesitation. He was the only one in that house who ever truly understood what happened that night. The slap didn't break me nearly as much as the silence that followed it. But in the end, it wasn't the slap that defined that Thanksgiving. It was the small, steady voice of a 9-year-old boy who couldn't stand to watch cruelty win. He gave me back something I didn't know I'd lost. And sometimes, that's the only justice a father really needs. The truth, spoken plainly, by the smallest voice in the room. If this story moved you, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to Aftermathtales for more real, emotional stories about family, betrayal, and the quiet justice that finds its way through in the end. Your support helps keep these stories coming.